What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video, and today I'm hoping to be bringing some good news. Twitter reported their fourth quarter earnings and it didn't look too hot, so I'm hoping it's the end of Twitter and Facebook 2022. Just two good things. Let's go.
I'm getting quiet now. Laying low when you rich, so I'm wiping down. Making house, take the bread.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it, no financial advice here, just an idiot talking about the stock market. But I did have a pretty fun time reading this article about how Twitter is apparently not doing as hot as it expected. Twitter misses earnings expectations across the board and authorizes $4 billion in share buybacks. Generally, missing earnings across the board is not a good thing. It means that all the analysts' expectations of how good you should have done overshot, which, you usually want to exceed expectations, not underwhelm them. And along with that, if you have to announce we're buying $4 billion of our stock back, it's usually to keep people invested and not have a situation where people sell out, because buybacks do raise the stock price. Overall, I can't say I'm surprised. I just feel like most social medias are getting to the point where people are kind of getting tired of them, especially Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All the older social medias, I guess, are just starting to feel like a lot less people enjoy them and a lot more people are annoyed by them. Twitter reported earnings for the fourth quarter of 2021 Thursday that missed analyst estimates on earning revenue and user growth. Shares were up about 1% Thursday morning. They ended up earning 33 cents per share, which is 2 cents lower than expected. They made a little less than expected, $1.57 billion versus $1.58 billion expected, and they ended up coming short of their monetizable daily active users by about 1.6 billion, and they said that their revenue guidance could be anywhere from about 0.1 billion less to 0.01 billion more than what was expected for the next quarter. Overall, pretty boring stuff about earnings per share of the company and whatnot. The one thing that is interesting is the fact that they're not being able to grow their monetizable daily users very fast, or as fast as expected anymore. And I don't know how much this really affects Twitter overall, but I would assume at least a little bit of that comes from the fact that, for every person that quits Twitter, you have to add two to replace them and then grow. I'm sure people are still, signing up for Twitter. I don't doubt that. That being said, it's just kind of reached the point where, people are probably going to be naturally leaving Twitter. I mean, speaking of the older social medias just kind of not being popular, I don't use Instagram or Twitter anymore. I just think they kind of suck. And, I know I'm not alone in that. I feel like a lot of YouTubers over the last year have kind of taken a step back from Twitter and the other social medias in general. So I do think it's going to make it a lot trickier going forward for any of these social medias to get a lot of growth, because like I said, each person you lose, you got to add two more to replace and then grow. And as that continues to stack up, it's hard to kind of put that cat in the bag once it happens. Now that Facebook has just kind of earned the reputation of being the boomer social media network, the odds of everyone young making an account is very slim. And I think Twitter might be going that way of oh yeah, Twitter, that's where, everybody goes to complain about stuff. If you don't really got much to complain about, you don't really have a reason to be on Twitter anymore. Twitter also announced a new $4 billion share buyback program. Half of that will be accelerated share repurchasing, with the remaining being repurchased over time. Despite the miss in user growth numbers, CFO Ned Siegel said in a statement and earnings released that it previously stated goals of reaching 315 million monetizable daily active users in quarter four of next year and at least $7.5 billion in revenue in 2023. They said revenue in quarter four was impacted by a slowdown in advertiser spending in the last couple of weeks of the period, but he said spending has picked up moving into quarter one. I mean, obviously, if they can still add, 100 million monthly monetizable users by next year, it doesn't matter how fast or when they do it, really, as long as they can keep it consistent. I will say, though, once again, not financial advice or anything, that share repurchase programs, obviously, a lot of companies have them, but if they're announcing, an accelerated moderated rate, it usually means that they don't expect the reaction to earnings to be very good. Especially like the last couple weeks, it seems like if stocks miss on earnings, they plummet like 20%. So I'm not surprised that they made an announcement about buybacks just to kind of maybe buoy the stock price up a little bit. But that being said, dude, I just don't know how achievable growing Twitter insanely fast is going to be if they're already facing headwinds of growing it now. And I don't even think this is like a knock on Twitter. This is all social medias in general. If you're having a hard time growing your social media in the current climate, I do not think that long term you're gonna have yourself a very successful opportunity, bro. COVID was literally the opportunity of the lifetime for these companies. Not in a good way, obviously it sucked, but like name another time where everyone is going to be locked inside with nothing to do but be on the internet. Hopefully nothing else happens, dude. Barring another worldwide pandemic, I think that like we're gonna starting to see people, not locked inside the house all the time, not having mandates in place. And as that happens, people are naturally going to be using technology and social media less and less. So, I mean, hopefully Twitter can prove me wrong. I feel like if anything can prove me wrong, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. But that being said, I do wonder a little bit about how they're going to be able to grow so quickly now that we're coming out of the period where everyone's inside all the time. You have to compete with outside now, Twitter, and, I don't really know if you're better than outside anymore. The new CEO of Twitter said on the earnings call that the company still believes it can meet the goals for 2023 because it's seen a significant increase in new account signups and reactivations. The company says it's seeing 25% year-over-year growth in new accounts or reactivation and a 35% year-over-year increase in daily signups. Siegel told analysts on the company's earnings call that the surge in new signups is driven in part by strategies like encouraging users to sign in when they come to Twitter from a different platform, and overall, he said the new users look a lot like the people who have come to Twitter in the past, there's just more of them. Twitter reports follow those from Facebook owner Meta and Snap, which both reported some macroeconomic challenges like supply chain disruptions, weighing on advertiser budgets. I have no doubt that the supply chain is probably impacting budgets a little bit. If you can't get products into the country to sell them, it's probably putting a little bit of a damper on business. There's no arguing with that. But I do also think, once again, you're just going to see that the advertising spend that companies were doing in 2020 and 2021 was artificially way higher than it should have been. Because, okay, we all agree that television's dead, bro. We all agree that billboard ads aren't the greatest thing ever. That being said, there was literally no reason to be putting my ad in a newspaper, period, when everyone was home. I guess they get delivered. But, you guys know what I'm saying. Why am I going to put an ad on a billboard if no one's driving to work? Whereas now, with stuff starting to reopen, life starting to at least appear to be going back to normal, now online advertising actually has a little bit of competition. Whether that competition is, as good as online advertising, as effective, that's up for debate. But that being said, it's at least there now. Whereas for the past 2 years, dude, you didn't really have a choice. If you were advertising, you kind of had to put it on the internet because that's where everybody was. Or television, people were just at home. You were just in a situation where advertising spending had to be focused super, super heavily in one area. And on top of that, dude, we just kind of had a red hot economy. As inflation picks back up, the Fed's gonna raise the rate. Things are just going to slow down, and as the economy slows down, advertising does tend to be one of the first places where people tend to cut back on spending because it's not 100% required. A little bit of ads obviously are needed, but to be spending a crap ton on Facebook ads when your business is down, it might not be in the budget for every single company, whereas at the start of the pandemic, it was online ads, baby, load them up, buy them all. When referring to Facebook and their issues with Apple, they reported different degrees of impact of Apple's privacy update on iOS that make it harder to narrowly target ads on iPhones. Meta said it expected to take a $10 billion hit as a result. Snap said its direct response advertising business was recovering quicker than expected. But Twitter said that last quarter, Apple's changes had less of an impact in the period than expected, and that in this quarter, its shareholder letter, it said that the impact remained modest. Although retooling our revenue products in light of Apple's privacy-related changes took time, energy, and resources, we believe that our product improvements have helped reduce the impact on Twitter. Honestly, I love this just because it makes fun of Facebook for like somehow managing to not come up with a way to like not take a $10 billion hit because of these Apple changes. I mean, Twitter did it. Either way, dude, I do think Twitter's kind of in a rough spot. I just think all the social medias from this time era, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, are all reaching that age where, like, you know, people are just naturally going to start getting bored and leaving. And especially with the emergence of TikTok and, like, you know, this new wave of social media, I just feel like there's a lot less reason to be on a lot of the older ones. Let me know if you think Twitter is dying, though. If you guys disagree, I'd love to hear it. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I don't really use it anymore. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinion, for real. If you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought. And, of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on notifications. If you really want to help me out, I'm going to go ahead, toss a link to the intro song down there, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast, or of course you could use code Scrubae at the G Fuel checkout to get a discount on G Fuel. The top link in the description is going to be a link to the Spotify show, so be sure to go check that out, give it a listen if you want to listen to the story times offline or anything. And the last link in the description is going to be a link to the merch, which, wow, if you take a look at your screen, might just be the coolest merch to ever exist, so be sure to go get yourself some, link in the description. On that note, though, guys, that'll do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I'll see all of you next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.